And then she puts on this Mae West thing. She goes, so if you meet a man in his late 60s or 70s, he's got a little love and life left in him, you send him my way.
Thanks so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. I want to welcome Dr. Gary Salyer back to the program today, the author of Safe to Love Again. And we love having him here because he is an attachment theory expert. Gary, thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you, Silky. Always an honor. Always an honor.
I have an interesting question for you today. The ageless question, what is the secret to love, long-lasting love, to a happy, long relationship, et cetera, et cetera? And there's so many different ways that is covered. What one or several, psychologists, authors, whatever, have found that it depends on what you're looking for in a relationship. Meaning, do you want intense chemistry, romantic intensity is what I'm trying to say, or romantic profundity? And I've never actually heard that word used that way. Is that when we look for that intenseness in love, that's very fleeting, comes and goes. But profundity is something that stays. It comes in squirts, if you will. And that's true. If that comes and goes, that can sustain a relationship. So I thought, well, what does Dr. Gary Salyer say about that? How do you feel about that topic?
I think most relationships need chemistry. Let's just get real here. Most of us need some chemistry to get started. Mm-hmm. And chemistry is always those big dopamine highs and those norepinephrine highs, right? And norepinephrine, all it does is it just makes it more intense. Yeah. That's the intensity. This is, to be quite frankly, the formula for how Mother Nature made sure there was another generation. But that's not enough for the human heart. Mm-hmm. We need more than a bond. And I tried to make this point in my book. Mm-hmm. Where we need to be known. We have theory of mind, is what it's called. We have mirror neurons, other species do too, but we have more abstract thought. We only feel love when someone can switch inside of us, mm-hmm. and really get a hit of what it feels like to be me. And this is the way then we feel seen and heard and loved. Now, this is what we're all looking for. I once had a young couple come to one of my couples retreats, and they'd been dating for a few years. Oh man, they were your typical fun. Let's go out and do something exciting. Let's do something new. Both of them love brand new experience of them jumping off, some tower in Vegas. Let's go and do it, right? But their relationship after 2 years was dying, mm-hmm. because they had never had a deep conversation. And when they learned to jump away from fun and to get into profundity, yes, right. Maybe that's what putting the fun in profundity is going deep. For the first time, something happened between them. That conversation, learning how to have deep conversations, led them to marriage several years later. Excitement is one thing, but all of us desire to feel known. And successful couples are excited about learning something new about their partner. They don't have to seek it in somebody else.
Another thing they said here is that, and I'm being heard, what I heard here, how I'm interpreting that too, is that somebody shows interest in you. That somebody mm-hmm. shows interest, they want to learn more about you, which makes you feel more interested. It just draws you together in that relationship. And they said that a relationship will last longer if you focus on the complexity of the person versus somebody, simple, who's easygoing isn't always that necessarily good, because like you said, you don't get to the deep stuff. You don't really get to know each other. And I don't think we consciously think about that.
We like to simplify
mm-hmm.
other people to make it easy to manage, but that never feels loved on the other side, right? I can still remember a woman decades ago saying to me, "You are the most complex man I ever know. I thought men just wanted one thing." Uh-huh. I found that insulting.
That men wanted one thing, or that you're complex?
No, not that I was that, but she wanted to put me in this little box that meant only one thing. If I just provide sex, then everything's good. Well, that's not everything about Dr. Gary. You know, I wanted to be known after a while, to get what fuels my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm working with singles, I talk about you have second act TV. I talk about CCTV. The formula is chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And then capacity is what I would call it. That's a term for, do they have the capacity to love deeply? Mm-hmm. Not everybody does. I would call that secure attachment. Mm-hmm. But there's also, there is timing. There's got to be a little timing. That's right. I'll grant you that. And then there's values. Values is, you got to know, it's important to line up values. Mm-hmm. But still be secure and have tons of attraction. But if one wants to live in a tent in the woods, and the other one wants to send their kids to Harvard and have a 4,000 square foot thing in North Hollywood, those aren't going to. One wants to live in Yosemite, the other one lives in tough to do. Notice that implicitly, we want to have the chemistry with the compatibility. Mm-hmm. And the passion and partnership. Now, in my book, I talk about, you talk excitement versus profundity. Many people got the right to love and be loved split. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed over the years is when somebody got more right to love or be loved, or they have more right for sex than for partnership, what you would hear is a version of what you're talking about. How come the hot ones and the good ones can't be in the same package? Notice that after a while, unless you're just really into some sort of sexual addiction thing, what sustains your soul is being known and knowing someone else. It's that depth and richness, because after a while, there's diversity of experience with chemistry and sexuality. But let's face it, there's so many positions in the Kama Sutra.
That's funny. Well, and at our age, Gary, we've been through so much already that actually, if you quote, we should know that there's more depth required to really make a relationship work. Yet, you see it on our comments all the time is this whole, if chemistry isn't there on the first date, well, then I'm out of here. And we've still, so many of us have failed to understand that the balance between chemistry and compatibility is just such a big key.
I can say, before I did the work and really reclaimed a secure love style, every relationship where it was lights out sex died out when you just didn't know each other. And after a while, because the human heart wants passion and partnership. I can say this, as an attachment scholar, but I also know that, and I don't think I've met very many people that are going to be satisfied with just chemistry. Now, you cannot have a lasting love without chemistry. God only knows, when couples don't make love for 3 or 4 years, nothing good happens. That's the other end of the pendulum. There's got to be depth, and there's got to be, excitement. And if we don't have it, we need to find out what part of us is afraid of having the partnership or the passion. It can be one or the other.
Yeah. And I guess understand that will go away, but it can come back. And I think that's maybe when some issues arise. It's like, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? We're not attracted. Are you not attracted to me anymore? And well, I guess what I'm saying, or the way I said it, it's an insecurity. Like, when does love go away?
It can be.
Yeah.
And sometimes what happens, the reason that the chemistry goes away, is they have spent time, they took each other for granted, they start investing in kids, soccer mom, baseball dad, whatever, and they don't know each other. Mm-hmm. Now, this is the back door for passion, is, when you feel loved and known, then you want to make love to that person. What has happened is that they did not keep their connection. They didn't keep the profundity. Mm-hmm. And the passion is the way it comes naturally out of that. And because in real life, we are on a voyage. We are not the same from decade to decade. There's research on that. If you think you're going to be partnered with the same person for 50 years or 30 years, you've got another thing coming. There's a lifetime of learning in that depth, and there's nothing quite about knowing that someone witnesses your soul. And I think there's nothing quite, I don't think there's any quite as sexy as that either.
No, I agree.
So I think we have to start off with a grain of the excitement, right? Because when couples start off with no chemistry and no excitement, it usually doesn't go any further either. I think you need that kind of like the first stage of a rocket to get a little boost off, right? Yeah. But what the second and third stages that get you into orbit, this is being seen, being known, and that's a lifelong process.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Now, again, going back to our age, 50 and over, we don't have 50 years ahead of us. We want to find love. We want a partner that will be there perhaps for the rest of our life, no matter how long that may or may not be. We're starting to come to the end. So I want to bring it back to that. What do you advise people in our situation, whether it's a new relationship or an older one that needs some serious taking care of, this divorce rate we have after 50?
You always have a right to be loved. And I think it's I'm just going to get, I think there's a spirituality to love. I think it's our job to love others, but we never outgrow that. I can still remember a friend of mine who had been married 55 years, great marriage, and then widow. And she did her grief for about 3 years. And then she comes up to me one day, good friend, and she is now 79 years old. And she goes, Gary, I know you travel the country and you meet a lot of men. Now, she had a beautiful, secure love style. Now, listen to how a secure love style that is able to create a 55-year marriage thinks. She goes, I know you meet a lot of good men out there too. And then she puts on this Mae West thing. She goes, so if you meet a man in his late 60s or 70s, he's got a little love and life left in him, you send him my way. There was never a time that she didn't know she deserved love. None of this, I'll never find a good one like him. There's none of this. Just there's good ones out there. You find one, you send them my way. And what she said, she goes, I know I have some love and life left in me.
Oh, that's great.
That's what no matter what age you are, there's love and life left in you, and claim it for God's sake. Now, the opposite of that client who knew she deserved love for the rest of her life. There's also the case, of a client who came in, and what she said to me was, I've been lonely. She was in her late 60s. And I just like to think that maybe I could have some love, but I don't want a long-term relationship. I'm not looking for all this emotion. I just like to have someone to do something with. And we worked one session on all that had been set up and how undeserving she had felt about love since she was 5 or 6, especially given her relationship with her father. And she told me, I don't want a long-term relationship. She comes in the next 2 weeks later at the next session and says, so the reason I've never been married is I never felt worthy. And I go, yes. And she goes, okay, I want a long-term relationship.
Yeah, it's amazing how just hearing that, even in one session or in one, paragraph in a book or something, maybe something on this podcast, all of a sudden we have some recognition. What is really happening? That aha moment. And that
moment isn't just thinking, it's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
She felt worthy in the first crack of dawn light. She goes, I want that. Because for the first time, she had a feeling of worthy running. And that's when it all changes. In that moment is what we all need to have that profundity. You are worthy of a profound relationship that also has a lot of excitement to it.
Well, we just finished a segment about doing the work on yourself and how I'm going to link to that as well, because that really goes into what you just said, is getting to the bottom of that you do have the right to, and just understand what your holdups are if you have those thoughts. Gary, thank you so much. As always, we'll link to all of your information, to your book. Always love having you on the show. You make us think. You make us go deeper than just 10 tips for this or 5 for this. Let's get right down to the cause, if you will. So thank you as always for joining me, and I look forward to another conversation on Second Act TV.